Hi everyone, so I wanted to show you how to texture in Blender for 3D mesh models to bring into opensim. So I'm using Blender 2.79. This is my preferred version for texturing, and we're going to be just using not Blender cycles, but we're going to be using Blender render. So this is your default screen. I just wanted to show you how to set it up. First, you want to just hit X and delete the box. Then you want to, up here, drag this and basically in half, so you're going to have a split screen. You want to keep this at the 3D view over here. And then you want to bring this here and change this view to the UV image editor. So UV image editor on the right and on the left, 3D view. We're going to import a day file. So I'm using a hamper that I used yesterday as an example. So we're just going to import it. Use your middle scroll to scroll in and out, and the same thing for the UV. You're going to, while your cursor is on the 3D view, you're going to use your tab key. This will show your UV map on your day file, and then the A key, that will highlight it, and that will show your UV map on the right-hand side. But what you want to do is you want to unwrap it. So also in your 3D viewer, you are going to use your U key, Smart UV Project. Just hit OK. Now this will show it properly unwrapped on the right-hand side. You want to create a new image. So on the UV side, image, new image, you can name it. Unclick the alpha button and just hit OK. And this will give you the new view that when we create a texture will show up here. Now we're going to use mostly the right-hand side. This is your properties and your outliner for all your texturing. Now, if you're just using an AO map and doing that, you don't necessarily need to add a texture. But if you're going to be using a texture and bringing it in, then you are going to be needing to make a material and a texture, and that's for each different texture in each different area. This has only one prim, so we're going to use the same texture. So here is your material. You want to click on that, open it up. This is your default. You want to change this, and you can change it to any color you might want. Let's try like a little orangey color. A specular, I like to make light. And then down here, the shading. This will show you how much light it actually emits. And as you can see, it can go from really light to dark. I like to have just a little bit emit. Sometimes it's too light and you have to bring it back up. Ambient, I usually like to bring about 7 or so. And then you want to go down here. Also in materials, I like to click off full oversample. And that's really about it. This subsurface scattering will help with some shininess, and if you want to have some glossiness to it, but we're not going to do that for this. So that's setting up your material. Then we are going to set up on the right hand of material is texture. So this crosshatch with the red and the white is texture button. You want to set up a new texture. So from here, you just hit new, then hit open. And I'm going to bring a texture in from the textures that I have saved on my desktop. So I'm going to just open image, and I brought an ashwood texture in just to show you on a 3D view now. If you take it to object mode and here, change this to texture or to material, it will actually show the material but without any shading or anything. This is just with the texture put onto the 3D hamper. You go back to your right-hand side to the properties, and here you want to hit booth, and you will see this is your texture, and this is what it would look like with all your material set up. So that's pretty good, but I do want to change the image mapping a little bit, which is similar to your viewer in World. And here I just want to change the size of the texture a little bit so that it's a seamless texture. So I want to give it more graining instead of just having a simple grain pattern. So you can fool around with that and keep looking at your view and see if it's what you want. Then down here under influence, I want to hit pretty much all of these for shading, diffuse, specular, and you can see it changes how it looks. Again, this is without it being baked. This is just if you threw it on just like that as a texture. The most important thing here in texture is you want to take your blend right here and change it from mix to multiply. This will add your color that we put in. And then pretty much you're ready to go. So you have all these clicked off. You have your material set up. You have your material and your texture, how it looks together. And then at this point, you want to go over to, I would go over to the blue world button right here and just fool around a little bit with ambient occlusion. I want to change that to multiply, bring that down a little bit as far as factor. Environment lighting will give you a little bit of emitting light instead of just receiving it. I want to bring that down pretty far. Most important thing on this area is to change your samples to about 25, and that's your ray trace, how many times it goes over and how grainy your shadowing looks, basically. So if you've ever seen a mesh come in and it has a very grainy looking AO mapping, they didn't change this sampling. I like to have it about 25, and that's a pretty good, without having to wait an hour for it to bake. It's a pretty good compromise. 5 is way too low, and you will not have a nice smooth shadowing. So now we're ready to bake. So we're going to bring our cursor over to this camera icon, click on it, and just go down to the bake. And it's set up already as full render. You can do just ambient occlusion, which I can show you what that would look like. And it will have the ambient and should have the color. It doesn't have the color. But that is what it will look like. And you can see the cross hatchings of the hamper as it's coming in. At this point, I'm just going to close that up because we don't have to go through the whole thing. I did want to also mention you want to have your external data here on the left under file set up automatically pack so that when we do bake the texture, it will pack it into the mesh. So at this point, I'm going to go back to bake and I'm going to change it to full render. Basically, I usually almost always do full render. And here it is rendering, as you can see on the UV side. This is the top of the hamper. This is the cross hatching where the lattice is. And it's getting a nice bake here. You can see all this really nice shadowing coming in, and it will look really cool when it's done. So we're at about halfway done with this. In the meantime, I'm gonna just start opening up Firestorm so we could be ready to go when that is done. So this is almost done. We're at 93.4%. And the reason I unclick the alpha is that when you are making your texture and it's done, this would be clear spots, and I don't necessarily want that. I'd rather have the black than the clear. At this point, so your image is in, you want to do here, image, pack, image, and it'll say can't pack from disk, pack as internal PNG. You want to say yes to that. That will pack your image into your mesh so that when you export it, it will be embedded. Now, at this point, on the left-hand side, 3D view, we're looking, I'm just going to show you solid, of course, will just look like that. Material basically still just shows the flat materials. It's not showing any shading or anything. If you go to texture, you'll see all the beautiful shading that we just created by unwrapping this and by baking this. So you can see there's nice shading in the lattice work, under the lip of the hamper. And again, if you render, you pretty much get the same impression, it's just rendered a little better. So you'll get an idea how it looks. If you didn't like, there's not enough, you want the grain to be tighter or whatever, you could always change your texture and then rebake it. So that's basically it. We're ready to save. Now you could also save your image after you've saved it and packed it onto your file. You can save as image if you wanted to. I have Hamper 3. You could actually bring it out into an outside program and fool around with the texture if you wanted to. We're not going to do that though. What we're just going to do is we're going to export it. So we're going to go to File, Export as Collada. Here, we're going to go to the Export Collada part of the export program, and we're going to just click off Apply Modifiers, Selection Only, up here. And then under Texture Options, we just want to do Only Selected UV Map, change the materials to UV textures, because that will include the UV textures that we unwrapped and baked. And that's it. We want to save it. So we're going to name this Hamper 3. And export. We're going to go in world, and we're going to see how it looks. So just 1 second while we log in. You can, and I do have this set up as a default with the 2 split screens for Blender, with the 3D on the left, with the UV editor on the right. I also have clicked off external data automatically pack into Blend. That helps. And I have saved that as a startup file so that when I get into Blender, it'll come up like that without the hamper, of course. So here I am in world and now, and I am going to upload the hamper model that we just created. So I believe I saved it on my desk. Here it is, Hamper 3. Now it's the same as uploading any mesh model. You want to go to your upload options, include textures. You'll see here it is, looking beautiful. You can change it here to Hamper 3, we'll call it. Don't need to change anything right now. If it's more complex, you might want to mess with some of these other options, but this is a very simple piece. You want to calculate your rates. It's a pretty simple, not very big project because I wanted to do it quickly, upload it. And then we're going to bring it in. I'm just going to change my settings a little bit so it's a little brighter. Here is our hamper. Just giving it a minute to resin. It's not really green. It will be that yellowish color after it resins in. But you could see already that you do have all the shading. There you go. All the shading that you created is there. As you can see, you have shading on the lattice work, at the lip, even inside of it. You have shadowing. It looks much more realistic than just a prim that you've thrown a texture on. So this is how you do it. Hopefully you'll be able to do it quickly. I can pretty much do a piece in 10 minutes or less. And once you get good at it, you could do it and you'll be texturing away and getting professional pieces into opensim where they belong. Thank you for watching.